Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome to Life of a Filmmaker, and this is a new series I'm starting on this channel called Filmmaking Tips. And pretty much the concept of this series is just me giving you guys tips on certain aspects of filmmaking. So I've been filmmaking since high school. I started when I was a sophomore, and I didn't start getting paid till I was about a senior. It was like in the middle, like summer of junior, going into senior year. I started doing music videos, product videos, and commercials and stuff like that. And I did that for about 5 years, and now I'm here and I'm trying to start my YouTube channel because I just started getting bored of music videos and stuff because everything just kept on seeming the same. And I was at a point of where I lived where I kind of like reached a peak, and I just wasn't being able to be that creative anymore. And that's kind of like what I live for, or like what I love about filmmaking, is just being creative. So I'm just starting this series because I feel like I have knowledge that I can give beginning filmmakers just starting out. And even if you're not a beginning filmmaker, we don't all know everything. So maybe you'll get something out of this series even if you're not a beginning filmmaker. So I hope you enjoy, and make sure to subscribe because I'm going to try to upload at least one filmmaking tip video once a week, and I have a lot of other content on the channel as well. So make sure to subscribe to stay up to date on everything that we have going on in this channel. So the first thing that I'm going to be talking about on filmmaking tips is lenses. I'd say lenses is probably one of the most important things that you'll have in your kit, because cameras, they get updated all the time, like Sony, Canon, Panasonic and all that. They come out with the new version of their camera every year pretty much, or every 2 years, and you shouldn't get caught up in updating your camera every time they come out with a new version, because likely there's not even that much going on with the new version of the camera, because cameras are almost reaching a point where there's, what else can you upgrade? Like, I guess you could upgrade like frames per second and all that type of stuff, but a lot of new cameras now could do slow-mo up to 90 frames per second, which is crazy. Like, you shouldn't really need much more than that. But lenses is something that if you have good glass, it'll always be good glass pretty much. Yeah, lens companies do come out with new lenses because they're companies and they need to come out with new products to make more money. But if you have a good lens, then you pretty much have a good lens forever, and you'll be able to mount it on cameras with the lens mount, as long as that mount is around on cameras. So the first thing you want to know when choosing a lens is what type of mount you have on your camera to buy that type of lens. So for instance, Canon, they have EF lenses and EFS lenses. So when you're shopping for lenses, you have to make sure that the lens you buy is an EF mount lens, or EFS if you have a Canon. And Sony is E mount, and I think I have an A mount, I believe. And then like for a Panasonic GH4, that's a micro four thirds mount, so you have to get micro four thirds lenses. And there's other companies that make these type of lenses with those mounts, so it's not just Canon that's making EF lenses. Like there's other brands like Rokinon and Sigma and Tokina. They all make lenses for different types of mounts. Say you want a Panasonic GH4, but you want Canon glass. So you can buy the Panasonic GH4, and there's a thing called speed booster or speed adapter, and Metabones, they pretty much are the best adapters on the market. And you could buy the Metabones adapter to pop on the GH4, and that will let you put Canon glass on there. But you have to be warned that when putting Canon glass on the GH4, it's going to be more zoomed in than it would be regularly, because the GH4 is a micro four thirds camera, so it's not going to be a real, like say you're using the 24 to 105, the 24 is going to look more like a 40, almost 2 times zoomed in. Almost 2 times zoomed in is pretty much what lenses will be on a micro four thirds camera, and that's even micro four thirds lenses. So I used to have a GH4, and my lens was a 14 to 45, and the 14 pretty much looked like a 28. So that's definitely something to take into consideration when buying lenses that you're going to be using for a micro four thirds camera. Now to let you guys know about the type of lenses there are. The first type of lens we're going to go over is called a zoom lens. This right here is my Canon 24 to 105 zoom lens. So that means 24 to 105 millimeters is the range that it can zoom, and it's a f4 lens, and we'll get into that in a second. But pretty much this is a very good lens. It's kind of expensive. All of the Canon L series lenses are pretty expensive, but they are really good glass, and they're a constant aperture. So no matter a lot of cheap lenses, when you're at their widest, they'll be like a 3.5 to 5.6. So when you're at your widest focal length, it'll be 3.5, and the more you zoom in, so by the time you get to 105, the aperture goes down to 5.6. So you can kind of see the stops going down while you're zooming. But the Canon L series lenses, they're constant aperture, so no matter where I am on the lens, it won't change aperture unless I change it on the camera. So I can go all the way from 24 all the way to 105, and it'll still be an f4. And the f-stop on the lens is pretty much the aperture. So a lot of lenses that are zooms tend to be around f4 or 3.5 or something like that, and the prime lenses, which I'll be talking about next, those have lower apertures. So pretty much what aperture is the amount of light that is allowed into the camera, and it pretty much makes your camera brighter, but it also makes your depth of field way shallower. The more you get to, the more the number decreases. So like f4 won't have as much of a shallow depth of field as a f3. But yeah, this zoom lens is my go-to lens at pretty much all times. You might be able to find it cheap on eBay. If you do, that'd be a cool pickup for you if you're just getting into filmmaking and you have that budget. You can probably find one around like $600-700 on eBay, maybe even 500 if you get lucky. And that could sound like a lot. I don't know what your budget is, but if you have a little bit more to spend, this is definitely a good lens to get if you're a Canon owner. But one other thing I forgot to mention on the lens is it's an autofocus lens, so you can switch right there. That's autofocus. And when you're shooting, I don't really recommend autofocus unless you're doing like vlogs or something like that, but if you're actually filmmaking, I would recommend manual focus, because autofocus can look weird sometimes, just the way it'll just kind of jump back and forth in focus with what it thinks should be in focus. But the thing that's cool about this lens is it has stabilizer on it, image stabilization. If you're doing handheld, it's almost like a must, because when you're doing handheld, your hands are just naturally moving, so the camera's going to be picking up all those shakes. So if you have the image stabilizer on, it definitely reduces those types of shakes from your hand with natural movement. And a lot of cameras now, like the A7S II and the GH5, they come with internal stabilization inside the camera, so that's pretty cool. And if you have the stabilizer on the lens and on the camera, you may even think that the camera's on a Ronin or something like that, or a tripod, because of how smooth the stabilizer and the technology they've been coming out with lately is. So the next lens I'm going to be talking about is a prime lens, and this right here is a 50mm Rokinon f1.5. And what a prime lens is that you cannot zoom or zoom out of the picture. It's a fixated focal length. For example, this is a 50mm, so you'll only be able to get a 50mm image from this lens. And there's pros and cons for this lens. Like, one of the biggest cons for me is that there's not one prime lens that I know of that has image stabilization built in. So if you're doing handheld, it's really hard to get good looking footage because of how shaky the camera would be of you just holding it handheld. And also another con is obviously you can't zoom in or out from the image, but I mean, you kind of know what you're getting into when you're buying the lens. The pros of this lens are the f-stop goes all the way to 1.5 because it's a prime lens, and prime lenses usually open up way brighter than zoom lens. For example, this is the 1.5, and that Canon lens I just showed you is a f4, and that's a dramatic increase in the amount of light that will come into the lens, which, I mean, if I have this on, I could pretty much almost shoot in the dark and not have to boost my ISO up that much. And another good thing about this lens is, being that it's a f1.5, the background can get very blurry and give it that cinematic feel for certain situations, because with the f1.5, the depth of field is really shallow when you open it all the way up to 1.5. Bad thing about being 1.5 is it's really easy to lose your focus, so you kind of have to know exactly where everyone's going to be at to get your shot in focus for the whole shot. Good prime lenses could run you a good amount of money, but there are some good prime lenses out there that aren't that much money. This Rokinon cinema lens was about, I think it was like $400 or something, like $400 or $500. But I know Canon, they have a 50mm 1.8, I believe, on their website, and I think it's only $100. And I mean, it's not the greatest lens in the world, but it'll get the job done. And if you need a low light lens, that's definitely the cheapest option that I know of. One of the things I don't like about this lens specifically is that it's not a macro lens. For example, the Canon lens is a macro lens, and what macro is you can get really close to your subject and still get them in focus. Like, I can probably be about this close with my Canon lens and still get this object in focus, while with this lens you kind of have to be a little bit further away to get him in focus since it's not macro. But when you're buying the lens and you need it to be macro, it would say on the description that it's a macro lens. So there are prime lenses that are macro, it's just not this one specifically. So you're probably wondering what lens you should buy, and pretty much it all depends on what you plan on filming. If you're just getting into filmmaking and you want to actually make short films and stuff like that, I would definitely recommend a zoom lens, because it's kind of like an all-purpose lens. You can get wide, you can get close. There are cheap zoom lenses out there, you just have to look around. And yeah, if you're just beginning, that's definitely the way I should go. If you're already established in filmmaking and you know what you're doing, and you already have your zoom lens and your camera and all that, I would definitely start looking into getting prime lenses, because those could get you that shallow depth field that a bunch of people want, because you can get the blurry background. If you're looking to do vlogs, then I would definitely recommend getting a wide angle lens, because when you're holding the camera in front of your face, it can get pretty close, so you don't want just like boom, like that's kind of like distracting for the audience. You kind of want to be able to see what's going on around you, so that's why I would recommend the wide angle lens for doing vlogs. Like, I do vlogs, and I shoot my vlogs on the camera I'm shooting on right now, which is the Sony a7S II, and I have a Zeiss Sony 16-35, and I can get really wide because the a7S II is a full frame camera, so you get the full, like a real 16mm look from the lens. And when you're doing short films and all that, you just kind of have to feel around like what the sweet spot is for your lens selection. Like I'll show you some examples from our latest short film, or shorts comedy skit, The Dark Yoga Instructor. And so for right here, this is a close-up shot, and we used my 85mm prime lens. This was to kind of like just show the emotion inside his face, so we didn't want the audience to get distracted by anything going on the outside, so we used the 85mm to get really close, so you're really just seeing what his reaction is to the guy talking to the yoga instructor talking to him. So for this scene, we're using a 24mm prime lens, and this is just to show the vastness of kind of like peace and serenity of the scene, and it hasn't got intense yet, so that's what we use this lens for. And there's different lenses have their different feels, so definitely when you want to show the emotion on someone's face, I would definitely go with a closer lens, like a 50 or 80 or 75 or whatever you have, that can really capture the emotion on someone's face. And when you're trying to show action, I would definitely go with a wider lens, so you can see exactly what's going on rather than just trying to make the audience guess. But all in all, I just want to get across the point that lenses are very important when choosing your filmmaking gear, and I would honestly say it's probably just as important as the camera, because even if you have a lower end camera, if you put a good lens on that camera, it's still going to look pretty good. So even if you have like a, I don't know, like a Canon T3i or T4i or something like that, you pop on some really good glass on it, it's not going to look like the typical Canon T3i with the kit lens. It's going to definitely look higher quality, more sharp, and could be even more vibrant depending on what lens you get. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first filmmaking tips video. This is just the first one. I'm gonna try to upload these weekly, as best as I can, maybe even 2 a week sometimes, just all depends on my schedule. So make sure to subscribe to the channel for not only these types of videos, but I have a lot of other videos that I'm uploading to, like my short films and comedy sketches, and I do vlogs and a bunch of other stuff. So make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share, and comment down below if you have any more questions, or if you disagree with anything I said in the video, then let's start a discussion down in the comments. So yeah, let's get interactive. If you have any topics that you want me to cover, then comment down below, and I will try my best to make that the next video. Alright, so thank you for watching, and I hope you like this series. This is just the first of many. Peace.